The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is brought to you by Compton Group, a specialist recruitment agency working in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors. Hey guys, Pete and Mike.
The Metal Guys.
It's like I've forgotten how to do this.
You have.
We are down in Southampton with Gail from TW Metals.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Nice to see you again, Gail.
Nice to see you.
What I'd like to start with, Gail, because this is take two.
It
We won't
is
talk
take
about
two.
why it's take two, but it is take two, 2023, end of the year. There's probably a lot of people in the industry who know you by name,
Yep.
who may have come across you in some capacity, but probably don't know so much behind, probably the wrong word to say, it's not the front, but the kind of...
How I got to where I am?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So can you just roll right back to the start, just so people can kind of understand, how did you get into the industry?
Dear me, how much time have you got, guys? There's 46 years you're trying to condense into 5 minutes. I started straight from school. I was 16. My family, typically very middle class, wanted me to go into further education and for other things, a number of reasons. I was against that at the time. I had a boyfriend, didn't want to move away. So I looked at in the time in the paper, because we weren't computer back then, looked in the paper and I saw this job advertised for a company called Tube Sales. So it was for a telephonist at that time. So I came for an interview. I was all of 16 and I got the job and I started the next week, much to the horror of my family. Anyway, rolling forward from there, as a telephonist, what do? You talk to people. And the first thing I knew was I had a very good ear for voices. So I could talk to you and I would know if you called me a day later, oh, hi, Pete, how are you? So very quickly, I moved on to sales. Once I moved into sales, then over the years, and looking back, it's very strange because nobody ever expects to stay in a company as long as I have. And it's pretty unusual, I know it is. But I have done so many roles within the organisation that it never felt as though I was in one company. Because, I've done procurement, I've done credit control, I've done operations, I've had responsibility for accounts, which I can't add up, by the way, so that one does still make me smile. My adding up is a typical sales adding up. 2 and 2 always equals 6.
It's like quite sad.
Yeah,
6
there we
metre
go.
length.
Yeah, there we go. So, over the years, I went from inside sales to outside sales to being sales manager to being a branch manager and so on and so forth until I found myself in the position where I became MD. And at that time, we transitioned from being Tube Sales to being TW Metals. We were still a privately owned company, but we were then owned by a different group than we are now. We were a much smaller company. At that time, if I remember rightly, we turned about 28 million, roughly. Now, the company looks nothing like it did all those years ago, but we've extended, we've opened new facilities, new companies. So what we look like now bears no resemblance to what we looked like then. Back in the day, we used to have card decks. We'd go to a huge system and pull a tray and see what stock we had, and then we'd have a price book and we'd look up on the price book, and that was how we ran our business. Now we're primarily contractual. We're very heavily into the aerospace industry, although we still have a non-flying section of the business. But, we are just a totally different company. And it's been a lot of fun. 46 years condensed into a couple of sentences doesn't seem possible, but it's been a lot of fun.
The bits you refer to there, where you've had different positions.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that's kept you doing what you're doing now. And even when you've got to say an MD, there's been a buyout and it's grown again.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, that is quite unusual that have had that, because now if you look at traditionally, if say an organisation wanted to recruit for a purchasing assistant or a purchasing manager, you'd look for someone who's done purchasing experience. You don't really see. If you see people do internal sales, unless they go to business development, they normally just stay in the same job, don't they? And I think that's why we see people move.
This is where it gets difficult for me, because I've not really worked anywhere else to see the way other people do it. But I genuinely don't feel that. I feel very much that TW likes to train its own staff.
Yeah.
We can take them into any position. And typically we do. We then move them around because, when you're young, you don't know what you want to do. You don't actually know that what you really like doing in this life is selling metal. Did you ever think that? I never did. No. Had no idea until I actually got involved with it. So we bring people in, whether it's into the warehouse or into the business of TW or Locoat Supplies, and then we move them around and we fit their skill set. What we are adamant we don't want to do is force a round peg into a square hole or vice versa. We actually identify the skill sets and then train those people and move those people where they want to be, because we get far more out of them if they're enjoying their life. We all want to go to work and have a good day. Nobody goes to work and wants to be miserable. Nobody. So if they are not doing something that they particularly like, well, first of all, before we decide that they don't fit in the organisation, let's see what else or where else they may fit. And that's really the ethos.
I wanted to roll back right at the start. You spoke about sales. I came in, I was on reception.
Yeah.
That was my job. Within day one, day two, I'm on the phone, and straight away you were like, I like this. Got a bit of a
Yeah, I could talk, yeah.
Now, Mike and I were both similar to you. We're both talkers.
Mm-hmm.
We like to talk to people on the phone. And if I'm honest, I think it's a bit of a dying art. I think people are getting worse.
Well, it's certainly something that AI will not be able to take over. So, certainly for the future, people have really got to realise. And I think sales has always been an undervalued skill unless you don't have a good salesman in your organisation. Good salespeople, I mean really good professional salespeople, are very hard to craft and to find. Very hard to craft. It takes us a good 10 to 15 years to find and grow a really good, solid sales team. You're not going to get it overnight. And you don't get perfection because, what is a good salesperson? Different skill sets, different types of personalities, they could all be absolutely excellent, but they're not all the same. We're all different. But it's that understanding of the cycle and passion. I'm a big believer in passion is a huge driver for success in any area of the business.
If you think about how you were selling early doors, this business has fundamentally changed. You're saying where you came in as MD, and obviously that was a long time after you started at 16.
Yeah.
It was already 28 million.
Yeah, okay. All right.
The point being, if we roll back to 16, 17, obviously you've got that kind of...
I had that hunger.
Yeah, you do. And it changes as you get older, but you become more talented as you get older. So you kind of, there's the balance. But how do you think someone like yourself, if they were coming into TW Metals today with that kind of hunger, given that you're so aerospace focused now, so it's more contractual, so it's not maybe the cut and thrust of the day to day, do you think those people still have a place in this type of business?
Absolutely. I mean, if you take, for an example, the current sales director for Aerospace, he started off in Longbridge. So that's the commercial side of the business. It's non-flying. And he was a young salesman. He sat down, we were at dinner one night, and he'd had a few beers, and he said to me, I'm going to be the best salesman this company's ever seen. And I said,
Is that Mike?
No, James. Anyway, and I said to him, great. Do you know what? I can't wait to see it. Go at it. I can't wait to see it. Because that's a really good thing to have. That ambition and that hunger is great. And whilst a lot of what we do is contractual on the aerospace side of the business, on the non-aerospace side of the business, which is equally as important to us, then it's still more bid buy. I mean, we do have some contracts, but it's bid buy. But I mean, as you know, one of the things I did a few years ago was acquire Locate Supplies. Now, that's got nothing to do with aerospace. But it was a great company. The culture was the same. The fit was great for us. So we acquired Locate. And, I was delighted and have continually been delighted with the way they're growing. So within this organisation, there really is the opportunity to go into any part of the business, whether it is import-export or whether it's procurement or whether it's bid-buy selling or it's contractual selling. Whatever your skill set happens to be, we can develop you and get you to enjoy the path. I've got some young people in the business right now that, come in and perhaps they were in a pub and somebody's met them and given them a business card and said, come for an interview. We think you'd work. And then you see them 3 or 4 years later absolutely flying. And that's brilliant. Brilliant. And I love to encourage that.
On the acquisition of Locate Supplies, what is that business predominantly? Is it just plate, aluminium?
They've got a whole basket of products from, stainless bar, stainless plate, tread plate, alley plate, copper products, tube products, pipe products. They do a bit of everything. They're the archetypal, old-fashioned distributor as we would have seen it. That doesn't mean they're old-fashioned now, but, when you refer to them, that's what they do. They have a whole suite of products that they sell to general industry.
Mike and I were chatting on the way down, and one of the things Mike was talking to me about, acquiring businesses. We're seeing a lot of companies that are acquiring, and I think at the moment as well, because people have had really good years, there's lots of businesses that are trying to sell off the back of a couple of really good years for high prices.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of that in the market at the moment. But when you're acquiring a business, do you get much help from the rest of TW or the ONI group? It is the ONI.
O&I.
The O&I group. Is there much help, or are you just doing that yourself? Are you just seeing an opportunity and just doing it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the way we work with our shareholders and owners is, we are an independent business as one of the branches or one of the parts of their business that sits under the USA. However, they don't micromanage our business in any way. They believe we are the experts in running our business, and provided they've got the right heads of business units, they're happy for them to make the decisions, because we are a very profitable organisation. So they're happy for us to run it in the way that we see fit. So when I identified Locate, I obviously put a business plan to them and said, this is what I want to do. And they said, go at it. That's fine. So from that point, yes, then I get a team. So, finance gets involved. We get local, accountants and solicitors and things involved. And then we start the acquisition process, which, takes a bit of time. It's not a 2-minute process when you're acquiring a company. But again, it comes back to know what you're buying, know the personality. So the first thing I did was, or whenever we're making an acquisition, is understand the management team of that company. Does it fit? Does the way they run their company fit with the way we run a company? Because I don't want to buy a company and then change it. That's pointless to me. I know there are turnaround companies out there, and I know that works well for them, but that's not a model that works for us. What we want to do is acquire a company with a similar ethos and the same sort of approach to the way they manage their business as TW has. And then I don't want to change it. I don't want to buy a successful company and go in and change it. That, to me, is the wrong way. What I want to do is go in and help them. So, for particularly Locate, we go in and say, right, okay, we can take away the HR function for you. If you don't want to manage HR, we can give you HR. If you don't want to manage some parts of finance, we can do that for you. Here is what we can offer you. You choose what, as a business, you don't want to manage. We don't mandate. So at the moment, Locate is not on the same MRP system as TW. They were happy with their MRP system. We didn't want to force that they made that change, because I truly believe if you buy a successful company, why do you want to change that model overnight? It may well be over time that you can make some changes that is for the betterment of the whole organisation. We all understand that. But a successful company is a successful company. Don't mess with it.
How did your role change then when because when you look at it, you've started at 16, and now you're at what CEO, is it? Or,
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Along the way, how much investment of away from work you having to to develop yourself? Because there's no one gets you ready for your next position away. You're trying to do it yourself and you're thinking that's where I want to get to.
No, I never think it's like that. I truly don't think that. I think we have been a team that moves forward the entire time. Nobody works in splendid isolation. No, you just don't. That would be miserable. Yeah. We have a really good team, whether it's, the support structure of ONI and TWLLC, who, we can go to if we've got some challenges, and we can chew through the problems and we all stack hands on what we're going to do and we move forward together. Or, within each local branch, again, we all stack hands on whatever the issue is and we all move forward together. So, I've never felt unsupported. I've never felt alone, or I've never felt that, I wasn't receiving support from my colleagues or from my bosses. I've never felt that. This is very much a family organisation, and there's always somebody who's got your back. Always. I have never felt alone. And that's a really good thing with a company like this. And part of that is probably why we have so many people that stay in the organisation really long term, because I'm not the only one at 46 years. There's people in this business been here for over 50 years. And even if you look around Southampton, I'm definitely one of the oldies and wrinklies now. But I've still got, a huge number of people that have been here 20 odd years. So, yeah, I know. Yeah. We're very lucky with that. We tend to find people come in and they either love it or they can't get with it really quickly and they move out really quickly. We tend to keep our people. But primarily because we are one team. I'm a cog in that team. Yes, of course I am. And we all know, my title goes before me. But I'm still just a cog in that team. I don't do absolutely everything, and nor should I. They all have, their job functions and the responsibilities and the authorities to manage that job. I am not sat here trying to manage what everybody else is doing. That's not the way we operate. And I've always had great sales directors with me, great finance director. And, these relationships are important to you because, If you work on your own, that is miserable.
I think one of the things, again, when we were chatting on the way up, as a business grows, you grow, you diversify, you move into different sectors, you try things, some things work, some things don't. That's just the nature of it. And you've grown a business to a certain point. Does the opportunity of like a locate, could be anyone, but is that almost like a personal thing where you're just thinking, right, we've got to a certain point, the business is working well, I've got really good people around me, as you've just alluded to. But is it almost like, right, I want to try something, I want to bring in this, it's like a new challenge? And then is that going further from that?
I wouldn't say it's like that, really. I mean, what I did with Locate, or what I do, is I look at the business as a whole, because, obviously my role now is much more strategic than it used to be. I mean, it used to be much more hands-on, but now it's much more strategic. And what we've done over the years is we have changed the business, and there's a number of key points that we changed the business. One was a number of years ago where we decided that what we needed to do was invest in our IT infrastructure, because I sincerely believe that the future would be around having systems you could manage rather than bits of paper. If you're in distribution, you understand how this works. You have an order, you have a lot of orders on the shop floor, it's due for delivery in 4 days' time, it's in a stack of paper, they want to change it for delivery tomorrow. Somebody's got to walk on the shop floor, find that bit of paper, move it around, and then take it to the top of the pile, and then you've got somebody else fighting that. That was the old way, and I knew a lot of years ago that had to change. We had to have control at the laptop or desktop level. So, if somebody wanted to change the criteria of an order, it was a press of a button rather than going to find a bit of paper. So it was a long path to go from being completely manual systems to fully automated IT systems. So we did that. That was a major sea change, because what that did was that then gave us the ability to also manage our service provision contracts in a much better way. So our customers could then have pure visibility of where their order is on the shop floor, and they could make amendments. So they didn't even need to pick up the phone and call us and say, I need that order tomorrow. They could change the date on the order sat from their desktop. So that was one big change. Another big change was the mix of business. If you are too heavily dominated by one industry, that clearly is a strategic risk for you, because, remember I sat through 9/11, and a lot of the business that we had when 9/11 hit, we lost overnight, because the industry was decimated overnight, and that took a number of years to build back up again. So what you don't want to be doing is dominated by either one customer or one industry, because if you are, and something happens, the risks to your business are inherently, dire. You don't want that. So when the mix of business changes, which it does naturally, because, you take another large contract for aerospace and it's, yay, this is fantastic. And of course it is, we're all celebrating. But then you start to look at the mix, and the mix is changing again, because obviously the balance of aerospace to commercial then is getting a little bit out of kilter. So what do? Are you looking at generic growth on the non-aerospace side of your business? Are you just going to invest in a new facility? Are you going to invest in inventory? Because we can do that, clearly. Or do you think, well, actually, I could buy another space and add another skill set to the portfolio that we have? And it made more sense to me, once that had happened and it had kind of got a little bit out of kilter, to look at companies that could not only do what we do, which is, put metal in a warehouse and open a new warehouse somewhere, but add another dynamic to the organisation. So that's why I did it. It wasn't a question of, Gail's got ego and I'm bored, shall I go and buy a company? No. I know you were.
I wasn't bold enough to say it to you, Chris. Glad you saw through it. You kind of segued a bit into aerospace a couple of times there. Obviously, things have not been great in aerospace over the last couple of years, and now we've kind of gone through that. Where is the aerospace sector at the moment? Like, what are the pain points for you? Is it materials? Is it changing specs? Is it
supply chain?
What's happening?
Supply chain. We have real constraints around supply chain. We've been hit with, a number of events, including, the events in the Ukraine, which then affect Russian supply, which is a real problem in the supply chain. We've gone from lead times as a standard, and there's a variance in products. You could be 18 weeks on stainless to, 40 weeks on titanium, to, over 80 weeks on titanium and up to a year on stainless. I've got one particular supplier that I'm on a 3-year lead time. Trying to look 3 years out against a customer forecast, and notoriously in the aerospace industry, well, in a lot of industries, forecasting is not the strongest point your customer has. So you're trying to forecast so far in advance and without knowing, exactly what's going to happen in the world, other than there are lots of variables. And we all know, there is geopolitical risks around the globe at the moment. So where do you procure material? If you're going to procure outside of where you're actually sat, so, us in the UK or the European Union or domestic USA, what risks have you got if you're not going to get your material for 3 years? That's what you're measuring. Risk. So there's huge problems with supply chain. I don't think there's anybody that is unaware in the aerospace industry right now that there are particular pockets of product that is very difficult to procure. So, do I see that easing up anytime soon? We've seen some easing across some products. We've seen plate ease up a bit. I don't see tube easing up at the moment, and I don't see some of the other products easing up at the moment. But, we still have the issues with getting supply out of Russia. The EU is now really heavily restricting what can come out of Russia. And, are we going to see potential issues coming with Chinese product or Korean product? There's anti-dumping duties coming in on another area. And these all, again, affect business. Anti-dumping is a fairly big issue when you're procuring materials. When we all know there was a period where people were buying Chinese product and then anti-dumping duties were applied, and it changes behaviour, which clearly it's meant to do. But it can change behaviour in a way that can negatively impact a business if you've placed an order for 3 years' time and then a dumping duty is brought in that you weren't expecting, and then you have to pay it. Yeah, exactly.
A lot of retrospective
Exactly.
charges as well, which were a bit of a,
Exactly.
a bit of a joke, really.
So you are running a business, but with an eye to, I don't really know what's going to happen in the future, and I've placed at this price, but are you 100% sure you're going to actually pay that price when it comes in? Because there are an awful lot of challenges in global supply right now, and as we just said earlier, change can happen overnight. And you're into it then, what are you going to do? So, we don't have a lot of choices around some of the metals as to where we can get them. It's only a handful of manufacturing mills. So, and they're all at full capacity. So, you've got to manage that to the best of your ability. Now, where a company like TW does well is because we have such strong partnerships with all of the mills, we do actually have strong order books where we are able to have a little bit of flexibility around that. But, I think if you're a single player, it must be really difficult at times to manage that.
Some people aren't even being quoted.
I know they're not.
Like the capacity is like full for a TW or whatever.
Exactly, because we book so far forward. And I do realise, as I say, I think, we as the sheer size and the way we are organised as an organisation gives us some protection in that. It's not a huge amount of protection, it's still painful, but there is some protection as opposed to if you're a small distributor just in one town, where are you going to get your metal? So it's a problem.
When we were at Farnborough, we were having a good chat, just all sorts really, because both Mike and I, we never really been in the aerospace.
You were a newbie,
sector.
were you?
Yeah, so we're kind of virgins to it really. We were wandering around chatting to people, and it was interesting because, it just looked huge, very shiny, lots going on, lots of people with lots of money swimming around down there. But when we were chatting to people, there was a lot of people who had really, really struggled and were thinking business was going under, particularly in the supply chain.
Yes, there were.
Are there opportunities still for businesses to be getting involved in aerospace, or is it quite tied up now, do you think? Because
I think there's always opportunities, but really I think the major opportunities come through acquisition now rather than a startup, because there's very high barriers to entry in this business, because you have to have a very controlled supply chain. You are dominated by the customer's supply chain. You're not free to buy metal from wherever you want to buy it from. We all know there is a controlled supply chain in the aerospace sector, rightly so. So, there's very high barriers to entry in that. And, there's a lot of people that do very well in this space. They do it very, very well. The major distributors, have honed their skill set to a particular part of the market, and they do very well at it. But, when you're saying there's a lot of money sloshing around, well, I'd love to see some of that, because it doesn't translate. Where the big companies are placing contracts, they're not happy to pay, any more than they have to. And you're not making large margins on this. So, don't get the wrong view. Just because it's a very sexy looking industry doesn't mean to say that there's huge margins in this industry. That is not the case. The fat's been taken out of that from the primes over the years.
From the supply chain point of view, obviously European mills, then we go further afield, Far East. Are those mills being looked at more seriously than they perhaps before, when people just wanted to have EU material? predominantly?
It's never been a case where people just want to have EU material. There are, again, it's a very specialised supply chain. So you have some skill sets within mills that is very specialised and isn't replicated elsewhere. However, the industry over certainly the last 20 years have absolutely been pushing to look for Chinese suppliers, Indian suppliers, where they can take cost out. But it's very difficult to move a manufacturing mill into the aerospace sector unless they've got that ambition, because there's high cost to entry. If you want to get approved, typically to have a product approved, it's going to cost you a lot of money, because you have to pay for it. The prime is not going to pay for that approval. You have to pay for it. So all the testing, all of the visits, all of this is paid for by the company that wants approval, and it's a big investment. And what you'll find is a lot of the Chinese and Indian suppliers say, we already have a full mill with commercial material. Why would we want to do that? And also remember, while we're sitting here looking at the aerospace industry and saying, it's a massive industry, actually, in relative terms, it isn't. The amount of metal that goes on an aircraft, actually in relative terms, by sheer number of the units sold, is actually relatively low. So, you have a lot of MOQs when you're dealing in the aerospace industry. So, the volume items are a small proportion of a large contract.
Are you seeing much change in the way these new planes that are coming out are being built? Obviously, you're supplying bars that are then being machined into components specifically.
So you're looking at a lot wide-bodied, that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking more about the way those are then, say, CNC'd into parts, and I'm looking at more the changes to 3D printing, and just seeing, is that impacted? Is that where companies are looking and going, well, actually, because of supply chain issues, we want to maybe start 3D printing parts, we'll change material specifications?
I mean, there's certainly been...
Get things quicker. Are you seeing any of that or not?
Not really. There was a lot of concern around printing, but there's a lot of development work got to go on for that yet. It's not at the stage yet, I think, where they're going to swap out some of the products and 3D print them as an industry as a whole. I absolutely think it's part of the development of the industry for the future. But do I see it in the near term? Absolutely not. We see certain products, 2169, people say is a dying product, but it's still a requirement. So it gets more niche, yes it does, and that in itself presents other issues with it. But it's still a requirement and will be for a long time, because you've got to remember the life cycle of an aircraft. So, a life cycle of an aircraft means it has to have metal for that life cycle. So, there are lots of niche products, and I'm, again, in more of a niche product in what we do is mainly long product. We do some flat, but primarily in aerospace, we are mainly long product. And that is even more niche. So again, the supply chain is even more controlled. Do I see the risks coming there from printing? No, I don't. Do I see, there was a lot of press talk a number of years ago about plastic planes, wasn't there? And every time you picked up a magazine, it was, the world's going to be plastic planes. It is not. You talk to the engine manufacturers or the airframe manufacturers, it is not. There is not a solution yet. So things will change. Will it be in my lifetime? Absolutely not.
How do you think metal distribution will change in the future?
That's a really interesting question, isn't it? I think there's always a place for a local distributor that serves its local industry, because local industry is literally an area that runs a certain amount. We all see it, don't we? You see a warehouse go up for a Tesco's, and then before you know it, there's a Sainsbury's or whatever. The industry tends to band together, and there's certainly no doubt that is still replicated. So I think a smaller service-orientated distributor will always be needed. I do think that. The larger companies, there's no doubt, globalization has affected the bigger companies. There's less of them, but they're bigger.
Yeah. How do you think it will change operationally? Obviously, we've seen over the last, I've been in stockholding for 10 years, obviously value added, whether that's first operation, second, has become more fun. But how do you think, when you look at the skills operationally we have in stockholding, it's either overhead crane, forklift, bandsaws, laser, press?
I think this industry is very slow to change, very slow to change. And I think we have to get much more involved in taking manual tasks out. People don't want to do the manual tasks anymore on the shop floor. I mean, I don't know what you find, but certainly we find it hard to find staff that want to come in and do, warehouse work now. And the warehouse work that distribution does is actually not easy warehouse work. We expect them not only to drive a forklift and pull a pallet, we expect them to be able to identify the difference between a bar and a tube and a pipe, and then we expect them to cut it, and we expect them to deburr it, and we expect them to do all of these ancillary tasks. So it isn't really just warehousing, is it? We find it harder to get those staff, but what I'm absolutely sure will happen over the period of the next few years is we will get more and more robotics in. For example, why can't you use a robotic to deburr? That's just a simple task. Why wouldn't we use a robot to do that? Measuring, all of these things. There are tools out there already, but they may not quite right for the industry that we're using, and they need to be developed more.
So we've been doing a lot more now with manufacturers, and when we see the onboarding process for someone who's not even skilled, and what they're going to be doing, compared to, say, the onboarding process of who's going to get someone to come in and cut, stainless steel bar on a cast iron machine. It's just, and you look at the rate of pay.
Yeah, we're back in the arc.
Yeah, it's just
most distribution companies. If you walk through their shop floor, they're back in the arc.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
and it will change. I don't doubt that it will change. It has to change because we cannot be manually based as an industry. We have to move forward because otherwise, the return on investment that we're going to have is just not going to match the shareholders' expectations. So we've got to find a lower cost to serve, and a lower cost to serve will mean being able to run your facility when the gates are shut. Even if you can't do every task, you can do a lot more. And I know we can all set up a machine that will run all night, but how many of us actually have all of our machines going all night? The answer to that is none of us. So, we have to automate more. And that may be, distribution units where everything is automated, all the material is stored in an automated way. I mean, we've just invested in the States I think we've invested over $20 million in one unit, which will automate the stock holding of the material. So, it's a big investment moving forward. But I think that is what will happen. We've got smaller versions of that in Poland, where we stock cut a plate and it automatically, you just scan your order and it spits it out at you.
Do you suffer from any of these problems? Are you asking around your office trying to find a new supplier or source materials? Have you got aged or high-priced stock that you'd like to liquidate anonymously? Or would you like new business from customers that are guaranteed to pay you for your materials? If the answer to any of the above is yes, then you'll be pleased to know that the Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is sponsored by SteelBuy. SteelBuy are a digital platform revolutionising the way businesses trade metal products online. SteelBuy offers risk-free trading where sellers are guaranteed to be paid, and automated processing including certification, logistics and invoicing. The network of vetted buyers and sellers is continually growing, and it's all housed in an easy-to-use trading platform accessible on any device. The online business-to-business marketplace for products is rapidly gathering pace, and SteelBuy are ideally positioned to capture the changing demands of steel buyers. So check out SteelBuy today and be part of the future of metal trading. Now let's jump back into the podcast. We've obviously got quite a lot of headcount. We were talking off camera, off mic beforehand about the size of the group. So we're talking about automation in the warehouse. You've had a web shop as such as in part of group for a number of years now. Do you see that that's another area of growth for you and something that you're going to kind of push? So not necessarily
retail, you mean?
Effectively, yeah, because if we're looking at bringing robots in to take away jobs, I think sometimes people look at it as a negative.
They do, but I don't look at it like that. I mean, whenever we've automated, we did the same when we went through all the changes around the MRP system. Everybody was holding their breath saying, does this mean we're going to lose our job? No, it means as we grow that we don't have to take new people in. But it doesn't mean you're going to lose your jobs. I think that's a misnomer. It just means that, you've got to make sure your workforce is multi-skilled. And one of the things we do here is we make sure that, through every function, if you're on the shop floor, you have the opportunity to understand and be skilled in every function that happens on the shop floor. So, that gives people a diversity in their job role, and it also gives them, the skill set that enables them to move forward. We want everybody to move forward in the organisation, not just sections. I don't plan to automate something and then get rid of a load of people. I plan to, use them for their betterment. They have skill sets that are not being utilised because they're busy, doing something with a bit of metal.
Their existing skills. Obviously,
exactly.
You're leaving when you look at your career, you've always been skilled whatever department you've gone into. But the amount of businesses who will buy a new machine, say a laser, They've already got warehouse, operational people in the business, and they don't teach them that skill. And I always think it's amazing because it
just
even with those
work
positions now we're seeing, is they're becoming skilled, where they'd rather go to an agency, get these skilled people, than actually train people in-house. And you think of operational teams, there's people in businesses now where some people can only use the forklift, certain people can use an overhead crane, certain people can use a bandsaw, or what, and you think it's a real dangerous thing, really.
A long time ago, and I can't remember exactly when, but it must have been 20 years ago, we put in a skills matrix for every function in the organisation. So then we clearly know within a team what the skill set is, and we said to everybody, right, okay, we want to upskill you, so we need you to move through this matrix so that we have a truly multi-talented, skilled workforce. To the extent that where we have machinery in other facilities, we train staff from one facility on another facility's equipment, because we don't just want them isolated in one area either. Because if somebody goes sick in one of the other facilities, and maybe they have a different saw that we don't have here in Southampton, we need to be able to say to the staff here, does anyone want to go to wherever for 2 weeks and cover for sickness or holiday? So, we have staff that do that, and they like the fact that they get to go elsewhere. They like the fact that they get travel as part of what they do in their working life. It's not every month, but it happens, and they enjoy that.
Yeah.
So
it also helps with your retention when you're talking about people staying. When people just do the same function, people get bored.
Yeah.
People want.
Well, would you like to do the same thing day in, day out?
No.
I don't think very many people
That's why I
would.
come out of Pete today doing podcasts.
Everybody wants a bit of variety, and everybody wants to make a difference. I truly believe that. Everybody wants to make a difference. So you've got to allow them that autonomy and allow them to grow so that they do make a difference, and they all add to the value of the company. We've talked before about, the amount of people that say, my people are my largest asset, and that they're just using it as a mouthpiece. I truly don't believe we do here. People are a huge asset for us.
Yeah.
So, we can use them, and we can use them to their best ability. That works for them, and that then means it works for us.
One of the things Mike was just touching on in the manufacturing sector is a lot of people are coming in, younger people who've got degrees, further qualifications. Harrison, who's with us today, he's come and started working with us. He's going to be doing a master's while he's working with us. So there seems to be that kind of drive to educate. You're obviously doing that well within the business, but the sector we're hearing at large when we go to all these networking events is saying we need to attract more people, we need to make it more inclusive, we need to kind of educate and make this a sexy industry, or an industry that people want to invest in. Why do you think TW have been so good at, you've only been in one business.
Yeah, exactly.
Career,
yeah.
But you had all these opportunities. Why do you think that the steel sector is lagging so far behind, say, manufacturing? Because effectively you're the direct supply chain to these manufacturing companies. So you're having to work in tandem with them in certain capacity. But why are we lagging so far behind in actually doing that?
Why is it so slow to change? Do you know, I really can't give you the answer to that. I think, so many things in society have changed, and this industry has not changed with it. One of the ones, you could easily point a finger at would be the diversity in the businesses that we work with. You're sat here talking to me as a female head of a business, which, is not so unusual now, but let's roll back 10 years. It was pretty unusual then. We still don't see enough women who are already employed in those businesses and already do a really good job and already understand, their job function and the way the company is, that we seem to see them, stalling and not rising up to a certain level. Why is that? Well, I've got a lot of theories, and I'm sure all of your audience will have as well. But we need to do better at that, where we've already got the staff, whether, whatever the gender or whatever the diverse makeup of that staff is, we should encourage that. We should encourage people to invest in themselves so that, they do upskill themselves, and they ask their employers for, I want to do this, I want to do that. They've got to take responsibility for that. But is that the single answer? Of course it's not. I don't know why the industry is so slow to change. I just know it is.
I just don't think we sell it well enough. When you go to we do a lot of things with universities, with the engineering universities. People don't even...
They don't even know about it.
They don't even know about it. When you're talking, I think a lot of people, young people, go to university, engineer, and believe they're going to work for JCB.
Yeah.
They're going to work for
the household names.
They're going to work for Airbus, Rolls-Royce.
Yeah.
And in reality, they might do one day.
Yeah.
But in reality, they might work for...
But there's a whole structure underneath
they might work
that.
for a family-run engineering business in the UK, or they might end up working for a supply chain partner like a TW Metals, but they're not even choices. And unless you come across at that moment of time when you relocate back to your parents and looking for a position, unless you see at the time the TW Metals advert for an internal sales position or a quality engineer or whatever,
you don't know who we are.
You don't know who we are, and I think that's.
I fully accept that.
And that's an
unless
issue.
you're in the industry, you don't know who we are.
And I think, like you say as well, as being like a female head of a business, that I still think that's rare in our field now. I think there's a lot of people when we're working with clients now who are saying to us, we need to put a 50%, 50% male, 50% females.
They're going to struggle.
Yeah, and that's be kind of done. But there is actually, it's not that hard to do. Like it is when you're talking, say, you're looking for someone who's going to work operationally, but it's there if people are willing to then train them. If you're looking for skilled female, candidate, that is very difficult. But I think the challenges of say hiring at the moment is people need to train, and I don't think people don't, in some businesses people don't know how to train. And that's another issue.
Yeah,
altogether.
Exactly. And people don't want to invest in that training. Training is an ongoing investment in your business, and it's something you have to do, a bit like maintenance. If you don't do it, you're suddenly going to get to a point where you've got a problem. So it has to be ingrained in the way you do things. Could we do it better? Yes, absolutely. And we're always looking for ways to do it better. But primarily, we have found the most success around in-house training rather than outsourced training, because we're actually training them on the product knowledge and whatever it is that is needed by TW. But because, as I said, we have such a large reach within our organisation, that is quite a large spread. If you're a small mum and pop shop, where there's only 3 of you working, you're probably not going to have the same choices of what you can do in your career as you do it within a company or an organisation such as TW, where there are lots of opportunities. And if you want, you can change country. You're not even stuck with, I'm in the UK and I'll stick in the UK. If you're really good at what you do, then you get the opportunity to go elsewhere. Be it one of the European region companies or to the US or whatever. So there's lots of opportunity within larger companies.
The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is sponsored by TW Metals. TW Metals are a stockholder and distributor of nickel alloy, aluminium, titanium and stainless steel products in a range of forms including tube, bar, pipe, extrusion, as well as sheet and plates. They have sites located in the UK, Europe, the USA and Southeast Asia, and are the largest supplier of aerospace tubes globally. With a whole host of accreditations and in-house processing capabilities, they are the first choice for OEMs, Tier 1s, fabricators and engineering companies across the world, and they're easy to deal with. I worked with them for many years, so I can recommend them. For more details, check out their website or even give them a call to chat about your requirements. Now let's get back to the pod.
One of the things that Mike and I, when we've been doing this podcast for a while now, we've had a number of women that have featured on the podcast. Obviously, the podcast is called The Metal Guys Talk Business. Yep. And when we first set that up as a name, we were a bit like, it's almost just like perpetuating the same old story.
For goodness sake, get a sense of humour is fine.
Yeah, well, there we go. But we did have a conversation about it.
I consider I'm one of the guys.
There we go. Yeah, and I think people colloquially use guys, don't they?
There's nothing wrong with that.
Term. So it can sometimes feel a bit embarrassing when we're asking the question, saying, what do you think about women in industry or, the gender balance and things like that? But you've been in this industry now, touching 50 years now, 46 years, you get into that kind of, where do you see the
dinosaur level, I know. It's okay, I know. Yeah.
But if you look at gender diversity within the industry, within TW, look, I've dealt with your business before. You've got lots of women in your organisation. You have had for many, many years.
Yes.
So...
And is that influenced by me at the top of the business? No doubt.
Correct.
No doubt. Yeah.
But how do you see it? Because we're still sitting, we're going to association dinners sometimes, and it's like there's no women there.
I think it's changing. I mean, what I will say I have seen over the years is, years ago I would go to a large customer for an event or whatever, and there would be a lot of men and a lot of suits, and probably only me as the one female, other than maybe somebody serving out the drinks or handing out canapes or whatever. The way to find me was look down because you'd see a pair of high-heeled shoes, not look up. I don't see that now. What we certainly see is a lot of women in middle management. So when you go to the large primes, so the Boeings, the Airbuses and whatever, you will see a lot of women in supply chain. No doubt about that. Do they actually rise up? Some do, and I think it is changing. Do I agree that we should, gender promote? No, I don't. We should, as an industry, only promote, women or people that are effective at the job they do. But we have to support skilled people, regardless of their gender. So if, as in most companies, they start off on the sales desk and they have a balance of male to female, and that typically in most distribution companies, that's what you get. You'd walk through the door, you'll see, probably a similar balance. But it doesn't change as it goes up. We need to encourage that change. And typically, if you look at the various studies, and there's a lot of them abound, about why women don't go for roles, typically men will go for an advancement in their career or a promotion. Do they have the skill set? Maybe not. But do they believe they can? So yes, they go for the role. That's the way it, as sweeping terms, and these are very sweeping terms, will happen. But women typically will not. They will go, oh, I can't do that, so therefore I couldn't do that. So, women you have to encourage in a slightly different way, because their mindset generally, again, in sweeping terms, is different. They won't apply for a job if they don't believe they tick absolutely every single box. And who, when you're looking at promotion, ticks every single box? Nobody. So, it's perhaps a slightly different approach in the way we look at this. But there are so many, women in business sectors now trying to promote and bring this forward, which is, it is a good thing. But to your point, it can also mean, lack a sense of humour. I mean, come on, guys, we're all working. We're just at work. I don't see myself as a gender type at work. I'm just doing a job to the best of my ability. I don't care if you say to me, guys, that's not what I'm about. I'm about selling metal. And it shouldn't come down to that kind of level. And if we start to make people feel afraid, that's a bit of a problem.
Because I think one of the problems that men probably have, men who are middle managers or more senior managers, and they might not admit this, so again, this is my point of view.
Yeah, your take.
I think there's, if I were thinking it, probably other people are thinking it. There's almost this fear of not knowing so much about women and maybe some of the issues that occur after childbirth and then having to have certain amounts of time off. Which is just, we can see that the paternal responsibilities have just kind of changed a little bit now. So that's good that men can have a little bit more time off. But I think maybe more about women when they hit the menopause as well, and men not really understanding that, not really understanding how to manage that, and not really then understanding how to get the best out of their workforce and actually work with women.
But do you not think it depends on the team you're working with? I mean, the reality is, if you've been working alongside, your female counterpart for, a reasonable amount of time, and you know how she operates, she knows how you operate. She knows if you're annoyed because you lost at the football the night before and don't talk to you for 2 hours because you got a snot on because your team lost, But you'll also know if she comes in and she's got a fan and is going, oh, God, don't talk to me, I'm so hot. This is about people, isn't it? We're trying to break it into components that actually, I think, are disingenuous in lots of ways. When I went through the menopause, did I actually say to my team, now look here, I'm going through the menopause? No. But, we all know if somebody's having a bad day and they've got a fan on, it's probably not the best time to raise certain subjects. Just let this flow.
Yeah.
So you just manage it, don't you? This is dealing with people. And if you deal with people, regardless of their gender, surely you're fairly sensitive to whatever's going on in their life or that day, if it's that insignificant as regards to the football.
No, I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? I don't think people have these people skills no more. They've almost become like a really niche skill.
Or they're frightened to, because the whole subject of, approaching menopause becomes taboo.
And I don't think it needs to be.
And I think there's an element of what you said about women being more cautious to apply for positions, and I think it kind of, when you look at, say, women who are in that kind of middle management, if they have, say, around say 34 or 35, and then they're thinking of having a child, it almost puts them off applying at that level. And I think that's when it kind of, when you go into that next bit.
It depends on where they work, doesn't it? If it's a small company, that small company is going to struggle to cover for them. So that's more traumatic for a business that's small than it is for a business that is a lot larger. And I certainly see in our Polish facility, we have a lot of young women, so therefore we have, high maternity rate in that. But we have to manage that. That is part of the process. These women are skilled and educated, and I want to have them back in the business. So, for the period of time they're on maternity cover, that is what it is. If I get lucky, I'll find another skilled person covering for maternity, and then I'm able to fit them into another role when the maternity comes back. So, you've got to look at some of these things as a positive rather than just a negative. But there's also a lot of, there's a lot of talk around this stuff that is taboo and shouldn't be.
Do you think it's still an issue, though? And I might be probably not the right thing to say, but do you think there's men that are looking at women of a certain age and just thinking, I don't want to employ.
Yeah.
I just don't want to employ.
Yeah, you're trouble.
You're going to have a baby.
Yeah.
I don't want you in the business.
Yeah.
Do you think that's really one of the bigger issues, that why we've still got this gender gap?
I don't think it's a bigger issue, but it's certainly still an issue. And how do you change all of that? Facts are that women bear children, so at some stage they are going to leave. But what I would say to you is you're a father, and at some stage you wanted your wife to have children. So therefore, we're all in it together. This placing it us all in silos, I don't think works. We're all in it together, whether you're a male at work or a female at work. We're all part of a team.
It comes from males on that. There's times where I think there's people who have female managers and they look at it the same way, thinking, and they also don't, but I don't think it's predominantly saying men think that way. I also think females think that when they're making it.
It's a business issue.
It's a business issue.
It's a business issue. When you've got a lot of staff out on maternity, it's going to affect your business. So, there's no doubt that a business leader is always going to consider that. But you have to consider it in the right way, and you have to manage that in the right way. And the wrong way is saying, well, I won't employ women because. Yeah. So, but, clearly it's a business consideration. But managing it effectively is right. I mean, it's a bit like, the quotas and things that are coming out now. Again, managing it correctly means that you can get to where you want to go without disrupting the business. Just going out and saying, well, we've got to have a certain number of women in a certain number of positions is the wrong way. It's the wrong way. This should not be, a big issue for companies to manage. It's about skilling all of your staff and having a balance. And surely a better balance across all of your business, for whatever reason, is going to be effective for your business. Yeah. Whether that's, your industry you're serving, the makeup of your staff. If you take a balanced approach in everything we do, you're going to have a better business. Too much of one thing is never good for anything, as we know.
The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is brought to you by Compton Group, a recruitment agency operating in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors. With a large, engaged network of candidates and clients, we help businesses make great hires in sales, operational, technical, quality and managerial roles, as well as assisting people in their careers by matching their unique skills and aspirations to businesses that are hiring. Having worked with more than 200 niche businesses since 2019, Compton Group have become the go-to recruitment partner for many of our industry's leading names. So talk to us about your next career move, or let us work with you on your business's next hire. Compton Group, powering employment in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors. Any thoughts on using social media in your marketing mix?
I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. Am I any good at it? Absolutely not. I am a dinosaur. But do I recognise it's certainly the place for the future, and it's the way to reach a large audience? Yes, I'm just personally not very good at it.
What's the plan?
I have a marketing person.
I was going to go into a sales pitch. I was like, my God.
Good try.
Where are you going with it?
I'll tell you where I'm going with it. You set up, or there was a podcast set up by TW. I think it was called The Metalcast, unless I dreamt.
Yeah, that's the US one, yeah.
Is that still going? Or did they just kind of trial it and stop it? And I just wondered what...
You have me on a piece of string. I have no idea. I'm just bouncing there. No idea.
When we were looking at doing our pod, we were bouncing names round, and Metalcast was one. So we Googled it, and we were like, damn, you've got it.
We certainly did it. We certainly did it for a series. I know that. Have we continued it? I honestly don't know, Pete. I mean, we do a lot of internal podcasts, training podcasts, that sort of thing. Yeah. So we do use it. The trouble is with social media, if I'm truly honest, at my age, and I have said I'm not very good at this, so you've all got to allow me a little bit of slack here. We see the same posts on LinkedIn showing a bit of metal or on a saw or whatever. After a while, I've seen quite a lot of saws and a lot of metal, and different companies saying, "Yay, we pack this way," or "Yay, we do this," or "Yay, we ship this to a customer." How interesting is that over a long period of time? It's probably not.
I think the hardest thing is like we're seeing now with our podcasts. We've done a lot, you stop, you get busy. And sometimes I think marketing can be pushed at times where you see a drop.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you do it, and then you get back to doing what you're doing. I don't think there's a continued
it's very
message.
difficult.
And it is difficult because it's each division of your business wants to try and portray a different.
And
message.
you have to have you have to be a certain size to have budgets for all of these things, whether it's training, whether it's social media or marketing. You have to have budgets for all these things, which means you have to be, taking away from your core business. And you have to have people and therefore budgets for them, and you've got to be a certain size to be able to do that, and that's harder for the smaller people to do. Because unless you're skilled at doing all the multimedia yourself and you're doing it at 11 o'clock at night, which is the reality, and we know it's the way it's going to be, how are you going to break through that barrier? You're not. You've got to be a certain size company to do so. And then by the time you get to a certain size, again, how interesting is it? How much do you want to see of a saw, in a warehouse in TW? You probably don't.
Oh, we see it in our business if we use it because it's free, but it's still, like you've just said there, 11 o'clock. He's doing things, consume it, and you get to a point where you honestly feel, is it worth...
Yeah, what am I getting out of this?
What am I getting out of this? Because at the end of the day, is we know what our customer base is now. We're nearly like 5 years in January. We know our customer base. We know the ones who want to deal with us. We know the ones who won't touch us. And there's ones there that we're trying to appeal to, and we're having to look at other areas. And it's you get to a point where Pete's editing, doing videos, your time coming down. You think to yourself, what is it? And I think that's the thing with marketing.
But
you can never put an ROI on it.
That you don't know till you look back. You really don't. I mean, we started this podcast with what I did at 16 and where I am now. Everybody will sit there and say, did you pre-plan all of this? Oh no. Life's not like that. A lot of what comes along is opportunistic, and you react to markets and you react to certain events. And if you're lucky and, perhaps have enough support around you and are bright enough, you can actually, craft your business and adapt your business to work. But all of those things have to line up. But you work hard. Nobody gets to be running a large organisation without putting in a lot of hours and a lot of time, and the family life doesn't. You do. You are obsessive.
And I don't think that's the thing now.
I mean, I sit every night with my laptop on my lap, and even if we're watching a film, I'm still. My husband, he's like, "What are you doing?" Well, I just got to do this.
This is what I do.
This is what I do.
This is what I do.
That's what makes me laugh at the moment when I hear people, but they're like 23 years old and they want a lifestyle balance. And I think
you haven't even got your life yet. How do you have a balance?
Like, you've literally been to uni, and now you want all, and I just think it's all changed. I don't think there's enough people.
Oh, you're sounding really old there.
I know, but it is. But it hasn't.
I bet you sound like your dad.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've turned into him. That's one thing I learned during COVID. I was like, I can't function. If I need work, I need to do something, whether it's doing content group or if I ever did something else, even when I worked selling up. You're obsessed, probably almost kind of wanting to be what James, your sales director, said. I want to be the best salesman this company's ever had, and I don't think people have that anymore.
I'm not sure. Do you know? I'm really not sure of that. I see, all types come through here. There is still, a good amount of people out there that are still hungry to learn a business and want to put the time in. Yes, there are those who think that, a good work-life balance, what they've been sold in the media is what they're going to achieve. Just like a lot of kids, think, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire by the time I'm 30. When they get to 30, they reassess that and realise that's probably not going to happen. But I think there's still plenty of people out there. You can get carried away with the naysayers rather than those who really do knuckle down and get on with it. There's a lot of people. People are the same everywhere in the world. You can find them. It's just appealing to what works for them and you.
I've got a question for you, Gail.
Go on then.
It's a really good one. What are you going to do when you stop? There you go.
Well,
that's the question, not even a word. They daren't ask.
Oh, they do. The whole organisation is looking at me and know that I look like a dinosaur. So at some point I am obviously going to retire. Is that day now? No, it's not. Is the answer to my customers and to the team. No, I'm not going anywhere yet. I've got another few years in me. But what am I going to do? What am I going to do?
What are you going to do? That's what I want to know.
I don't think whenever you spent your whole life busy that you're ever going to spend your whole life doing nothing. There's loads of things I want to do. I love, I'm heavily into things like going to antique fairs, and I love doing up furniture. I love messing around with wood and things like that. So I'd like to try my hand at that. So there's very many things I would like to do.
Do you think you'll transition? Because I think looking at my own dad, he finished work and he's he still does a bit now.
How is he?
He's still doing it. He's fine, yeah.
Good.
He's doing well, but he's kind of kept that little bit, and he kind of transitioned from working full time. Then he reduced, he was probably doing like 3-4 days in the office. Then as we kind of closed that business down and I came to do this, it was just a slow not slow decline, but he just slowed himself down. And it was almost like
Graham, I'm so sorry of what you're saying about you.
Working with you for
But
15 years,
really
mate.
balanced. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like I'm full of work and I'm not doing so much, and it almost you just go the other way.
But do you know what, Pete? When I get there, I'll tell you. I really don't know right now. Everybody says it to me. I don't know. I'm still doing what I'm doing. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing. There's still more things I can do for TW. And I do say to the team, genuinely, I do say this to the team, if there is a point where I am not adding value, you need to tell me. Because clearly when I look in the mirror, I don't see me the way you see me. And that's just a fact of getting older. Every old
hungry,
person
aren't
will
you?
tell you that they don't feel old.
You're still hungry for it.
And I still think I'm capable.
got it.
I expect the team to tell me when they think, Gail, you can't hold a conversation anymore. It's time you moved out.
Well, it's like, I've just been chatting to Mandy. Mandy's still here. It was lovely to see her. I've known her for years. I just said,
Well, I don't let anybody go, they got skill sets.
She goes, she goes, I do the stuff no one wants to do. She goes, and I'm quite happy with
she
that.
likes it.
I'm quite happy doing that. And I said, well, so when are you going to stop doing that? She goes, well, Gail just keeps asking, are you bored yet, Mand? Are you all right? Just keep coming in.
Yeah,
it's
I
like
think it's when you lose that drive, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you start pulling up on a Monday and you can't be bothered.
If I ever got to that horror point where I didn't enjoy what I did, then yes, I would say enough's enough. But I've never done that.
No.
I still enjoy what I do. I still think there's more deals to do out there. There's still stuff that, we need to change here. We're constantly changing, constantly evolving. And that's what's happened my whole career. It's never been a stay still job, ever. There's always new things that we need to look at, new procedures we need to put in, new rules, new this, new that, new opportunities, new places in the world where we can open. All of that is still as interesting to me as it was 20 years ago. So
there's people you've known for years who you speak to, and it's just like it's a lot.
It's a shame when they got no teeth anymore, though. I've got to tell you, that really does make me feel old. People do say to me, oh, I do remember back in the tube cell days. I think, oh God.
And just finally, because I can't remember what you said last time, we asked people about mistakes, things they've done wrong.
Oh, I've made loads.
I know,
calling
did
you
say-
Graham and take one, mate.
Yeah, well,
I mean, I hear these people who say, oh, I don't regret anything. Yeah, I think, really? Have you not lived a life? Oh, I could list a whole load.
Yeah.
Proper
Anything
PC, aren't they?
you did, though, where you thought, oh, God, that was just comically bad.
Oh, I've done it. Yes. Oh, I've made some classic mistakes. The first mistake as I made as a young rookie salesperson, and if you're in sales, never do this, was we had an order at that time from ICI, which at the time was a big chemical company, and it was a really important business to TW. And it was for some 1/4-inch tube, and they'd put on it a PSI. And I didn't know what PSI stood for, so I just sent them, 1/4-inch, I think it was 28 thou or whatever tube, and sent them however many thousands of metres. And that was fine in my world. I'd booked the order, everything was wonderful, until I got carpeted by the MD at the time, who called me in and said, there was something on this order. You didn't do this. Why didn't you do it? I said, well, I didn't know what it was, so I didn't do it. And he tore me a new one and said, if you ever do anything in this company again and you don't know what you're doing, I will fire you on the spot. Because what had actually happened was it had got put into this chemical plant, and of course it wasn't rated, and blew up part of the plant.
Nice.
Now, nobody got hurt. Nobody got hurt, I will say.
Yeah.
However, he did carpet me for that, and I never ignored anything on an order again. If I didn't understand it, I went and checked out what it was. But, I learned the hard way. What else have I done? Oh, the list is endless, to be honest with you, Pete.
Well, at least you're honest. The amount of people we speak to, they go, oh, nothing really that made you think, really?
Oh, God, I've done all horrendous things. The one thing I would say that, looking back, could you change, would you do differently? And I always say this to my managers when they're coming in new to management. The things I regret are the things I didn't act on fast enough.
Yeah.
The things I kind of knew but kept talking myself out of or into for a reason. So maybe you've got somebody who, is just not working out in staff-wise, and you've moved them around 5 or 6 positions and it's still not working out. You've put a lot of time and effort into this person. At some stage, you've got to cut it and say, this is never going to work. We are not the right company for you. You need to go. Because you just keep on trying, and you're never going to turn that person around. So that could be that. Or a customer. You're not making any money, but it's a contract, and you don't want to lose the contract, but you're not making any money. Next year, next time, next go round, we'll negotiate it better, we'll make money. And you still don't. At some point, you've got to go, you are not a customer for me.
Yeah.
It's the things that you don't do when really you should that I regret the most. Yeah.
How quick did you get onto that as well? Because obviously you've given quite a few examples there. We would know that ourselves, running a bit, you see it, we hear these kind of things. How quickly did you get onto that? And how quickly did you manage to get, because sometimes it's tough to make a decision.
It is.
You don't want to feel like the bad person.
It's a hard thing to come to, but you can't feel guilty about that. If something doesn't work for the business, you've got to either get rid of the customer or change, whatever it is. But when did I come to the realisation that acting faster is better for the business? Probably after about 10 years, because, there have been a few times where, we didn't replace this saw, or we didn't do that fast enough because we thought we could limp along with it, and we thought this, or, after about 10 years, I started to realise, actually, no, chop it out, move on, get a new saw now, don't wait.
Have you softened as you've got further in your career, or have you just stayed very much on that kind of...
I think you've got to ask other people on that. I've probably softened with some of it, yeah.
Why?
Well, because nothing's ever black or white, it's shades of grey, isn't it? No, is that customer, can you turn him around? Well, you may be able to. Shades of grey. What is it within that contract that is losing you the money? Can you deal with that part of it? Can you break it apart and check it out? Yes, probably. But at some point, if he's an arse of a customer, you've got to say no. Off you go, because we've all had those.
I think it's always hard with those type of things when you can become quite emotional about them, can't you?
I am very emotional.
I'll look at someone, can be so flippant and be like, no, and cutting things out, especially with people coming in. I'll look at it sometimes and I think I can tell within weeks.
Yeah,
sometimes,
whether you're going to fit. We can tell within a month. Absolutely.
We had one person start. They were there from 9, and George went to Greg's. Come back, she'd gone.
Yeah.
It was like
I think we've all had it. They go off for lunch and they never come back again.
Yeah,
absolutely. We've all had it. Yeah, I mean, the ones that really frustrate me are, health and safety. That is something that is so important to any business, and yet so many people are laissez-faire about it. I don't like wearing glasses, or I didn't think about the right gloves. Look, we...
Or just use any old tube, don't worry about it.
Which is exactly what I did.
Peter.
Touche.
Yeah.
I could come up with some more classics than that I've done in my time, but still, there we go.
Nice one.
But that was great. That was better second time, right? I've enjoyed that.
Yeah. I thought you were better as well.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks,
well, it helped that I didn't call you Graham, didn't it?
Yeah. We won't mention it. But I really appreciate that. Thanks for...
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks for letting us come back down.
You're
Awesome.
very
Thank you.
nice to see you both.
That's Season 2, Episode 3 down. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, Gail. Next week, we'll be talking about marketing and e-commerce with Joe Stallion, great name, from Solvi Digital. So if you're interested in learning more about industrial marketing, be sure to tune in next week for that podcast. It's a really good show. Having spent a few years creating content myself in the metal and engineering sector, it was great to talk to someone who's operating in the same space. So if you're working in a business in the metal engineering or manufacturing sector, this is a great podcast to find out what's hot and what's not in industrial marketing in 2024. So if you've managed to get all the way to the end of the podcast, chances are you've probably enjoyed the content. And this is where we'd like to ask you a favour. We spend a lot of time producing these podcasts and we'd like to do more of them. But for us to grow the podcast, we can only do so much to promote it. So if you've enjoyed the podcast, we'd ask you to share it with colleagues, people that you know in the industry, because recommendations are the best way for us to gain more reach and more traction so we can attract more guests talking about more topics that are specific to this industry sector. But that's enough from me, and I'll see you next week.